1966, sorry, when it was the so-called Hop Alley was leveled because of the construction of Bush Stadium. But before that, there was really a vibrant and vital Chinese community there, basically located physically located around the 7th, 8th Street, Market Street, in that area. And according to this early residents, I interviewed a number of Chinatown old-timers, for example, Miss Letty Hong, who is in her 80s,
yes.
Still very alert. The Chinese community was very active, there are about 30 or maybe 4 families there. And they have usually in the business in the front, and the family would live upstairs. And the children in that neighborhood, they call everyone, all the male adults, uncles. So it's really tightly knit.
There's a very tight responsibility. I think this is true of a lot of immigrant groups in this country, but it just struck me reading your book that there was an even more control and culture of being very strict with the children and emphasizing education. Is that is that true, Thomas? I mean, education is still the number one.
Education always number one in any family in the Asian community, I think. I know my mom and dad's always pushing me every time I come home. Walking in the door, first thing they said, how was school? It's always the first thing.
Well, I want to say to you, of course, now it's this big scare that the Asian students are crowding out all the other students because they're such good students. We have someone on a car phone who may want to talk to that. Yeah, go ahead. B, are you on?
Yes. Oh, yes. The topic is very close to my heart. I volunteered through WashU. There is a group called Speak English With Us, and I met this Chinese couple, and we became a family. And when they were pregnant, I offered to come into the labor room, and I told my daughter, I said to her, since your mother is not here, I will come with you in the labor room and hold your hand. So that I was there when my grandson was born. And we are a very happy family. My granddaughter and my daughter and my Chinese son and daughter and my grandson. So it's a great feeling. I have learned a great deal from them. And they are my family.
Well, that's, thank you very much. I want to talk about the interaction. We're going to be taking a break right now, but when we come back, let's talk about the interaction, particularly on campuses and between the Caucasian and the Chinese family. I'm Harriet Woods, and we're talking about, well, I said Chinese St. Louis, but I think we're really talking about the cultural community and what it is we want to know about and what we do know about our neighbors and our friends who are Chinese and Chinese American. And with me, I guess you could say you're an expert. I don't know.
Thank you.
Huping Ling is a professor at Truman State University, who's written, I guess, maybe the first book about the Chinese community, complete book about Chinese community in St. Louis, from enclave to cultural community, from the old days of when they first were a little neighborhood where the stadium now is, and the alley there, to today when, China is a place where we know people, we travel, but at the same time, it's a mystery still, to be very honest with you, in culture. Did you have any comment about Bee before we go on, who talked about how she had gotten to know a family in the community?
Yeah, it was really nice to hear about the Bee's story and her interaction with the Chinese family here. I think the concept of cultural community that I coined in my book, it's important. That is important way to interpret the St. Louis Chinese American community today, because it is a kind of unique and different from a typical Chinese American community, which we go to San Francisco or New York. We can see a gate, the Chinese gate. You can see the typical Chinese architecture. You see a lot of restaurants. You see a lot of tourists. But the St. Louis Chinese community is a little bit different. It's more scattered around, even though we can still see quite a concentration of Chinese businesses along the Olive Boulevard. But overall, the Chinese Americans in St. Louis are spread out among all the suburban municipalities. But since I studied the community, I have been fascinated with this phenomenon. I see the community. We just talked about earlier how big, about the size of Chinese American. Okay, it's like more than 20,000, but we don't see the large physical concentration of this 20,000 people. So how do we understand and interpret the community? So I came up with a term I call it cultural community. So that is the Chinese Americans in St. Louis. They don't have apparently very identifiable physical concentration, but they still gather together. They still have a very strong sense of community, which is embodied in the community activities like, you have Chinese language school, Chinese churches, or the cultural fairs, for example, the China Days we have every year.
I wanted to ask my other guest, Thomas Wong, who has been very active in some of the organizations. There are some annual festivals. There are organizations to speak up for Chinese Americans. Tell me a little about that.
Well, I used to be a past president of OCA, which is Organization of Chinese Americans. They're a 80 chapter plus affiliates across the nation and so forth. They've been around for a long time and speaking on behalf of the Asian community. Now, one of the mission statement of OCA is embracing the hopes and aspirations of Chinese and Asian Americans in the United States. And the objective of them, objective and goals is to promote and secure justice, equal treatment, and equal opportunity, as well as to eliminate prejudices, stereotypes, and ignorance. Are
there problems? I can imagine there might very well be with any group that, first of all, many of the immigrants take a while to learn the language. There has to be communication. So what kind of issues come up if you're talking about having an organization to speak up for the Chinese Americans?
Well, let me give you an example. Back in year 2000, when I was the past president, is that we had to fight to kind of, to have an equal treatment. We had a voice in there for Dr. Wen-Ho Lee. I don't know if you heard Dr. Wen-Ho Lee. He was the scientist that was down at Los Alamos, down in New Mexico. Mm-hmm. Now, we pulled together as a group, and we were able to fight for that. And we started up a defense fund for him, so that way they have enough money to support.
And eventually they exonerated him.
Exonerated, right? There was 50 accounts. One was, one was placed in there, but it was just one of those. It was unfair treatment for Dr. Wen-Ho Lee at the time.
Well, that's one of the issues. I'm being very honest that I don't feel, except for a couple of professionals and people I've known in other fields and gotten to know, that I know the Chinese American community or the Chinese community, and as you said yourself, they're from all different places. So it isn't as if you can say, well, they're Cantonese, they're from Hong Kong, they're from here or there, and how can we do something to make you more welcome, but also to take advantage, frankly, of all you have to bring to the community? Mm-hmm. Any good suggestions?
Well, I think the community at large has been tried very hard. For example, St. Louis has organizations called International Institute of Metro St. Louis. I think that is a wonderful organization that has been done tremendous work to help new immigrants to get settled down, to adjust to their new life, which has, of course, been supported by government fund and private funds, donations as well. I think the